My name is Emanuel White. We're back this week with Teen Missions Month of Missions. This week we're going to be talking about doing missions in the United States. We have with us Mr. Ron Voris, and he's going to be sharing with you guys about some things. So, Mr. Voris, could you just tell us a little bit about your background?
I didn't see that question on there.
Just threw it in there.
What background would you like to see?
Share about, just like your pastoral in the United States a little bit.
I co-pastored a church in California, and I was an associate pastor here. That's about it.
Okay. So you can say that you've been in America for a long time.
A year or two, at least.
A year or two, at least. All right. As you've been here in America for a while, obviously longer than I have, do you think that it's come to the point in America where we need to have missionaries start coming here as well as the churches start going out more?
I've told my class before, and I'll repeat it for you just for the benefit of the people here. If a group of 25 people set out to each win one convert and disciple them for 1 year, and then the next year all 50 of them went out and did the same thing and repeated that year after year, within 25 years the entire world would be evangelized and everyone would have had a chance to either accept or reject Jesus Christ. The easiest place to start is here at home. You speak the language. You know the culture. There's no hindrance to your speaking except bashfulness or embarrassment. But you can go out and win converts, and you can do it. And in 25 years, the whole world would be evangelized. It hasn't happened yet. 2,000 years since Christ, and we have not fulfilled the Great Commission because most of us sit on our hands. I'm going to have lifestyle evangelism. I will show people Christ through how I live. And they think, well, gee, he's a nice guy. And that's it. Nobody comes to Christ. There's an axiom, preach the gospel, and if you must, use words. You can't preach the gospel unless you do use words. How can you talk about Jesus Christ using your hands and your feet? They're necessary to get you to where you need to be to do share the gospel. But apart from sharing it, you're just walking around.
Yeah, I'd agree. So in that, would you think that missions here in America is different than missions overseas?
Vastly different.
How so?
This country is oppressed by wealth. If a person or a family in this country makes, $25,000 a year. Mm-hmm. If a family makes that much, they're in the top 3% income-wise in the world. And yet we have people on welfare who are receiving that much, and they're considered poor. But in other countries, some people make only $3 in an entire year, especially in some of the African countries, Asia. The comparison in the mission outreach between America and these overseas countries is phenomenal. You go to an overseas country and you can present the gospel, and simply because you're a foreigner, people will invite you to speak and listen to you and seek to understand what you're saying. In this country, if you're a foreigner and you don't speak the language, people ignore you. I have seen people come and ask directions to the gas station and get flipped off because they don't speak English, cussed out. Learn the language. They're here as tourists. Yeah, we need missions. More than that, we need people to start doing what Christ has commanded us to do. Make disciples.
What are some you touched on two things, and you said one about how in America we have an oppression of wealth, so we're an abundantly wealthy society, and that also what was trying to think of the phrase you used, we like aren't we're not in an inviting type society, we're not an open society,
Right.
whereas other people are. So in that, how could, say, someone overcome those differences in sharing the gospel with people? Like how does wealth and the not as friendly environment hinder us from sharing the gospel? And like, really, what I want to say is, how can we overcome that?
Well, right now, most Americans depend on themselves and their finances. I've got so many dollars in the bank. I own a home that's worth so much money. If anything happens, I'll just sell my home and we'll be covered. They don't rely on God, not overtly or otherwise. But if you build a relationship with people and they see a difference in your life where you're not depending on a paycheck, you're not depending on your savings account or your stocks and bonds, but you're depending on what God is doing in your life, then they start to question, well, you seem happy and yet the stocks are going down. How can you be so happy? And you have the opportunity to share with them, because of your relationship with them, who Jesus Christ is and what he means in your life. Mm-hmm. To just step out and start making like a TV evangelist, promising health, wealth, and all that, wisdom and all this stuff, they see that every day and they know it's false. It's easy to see the fallacy in it. You get preachers up there who say, God wants you to be healthy. God wants you to be wise. God wants you to be wealthy. And you get cancer within, God doesn't love you. That's the rationale. If God wants me to be healthy, why did I get cancer? I was in an auto accident and now I can't stand up straight. Oh, God wants me to be healthy. What happened? He wants me to be wealthy, but I lost my job. Suddenly, God isn't real anymore, because the things you've been taught are false, obviously false. And yet God uses these things to draw you to him. A tragedy is not necessarily a tragedy if, because of the tragedy, you have to depend on God. And if people see that in your life, and we all have tragedies happen, if God sees that in your life, that because of the tragedy, you're not broken, you're not cast down, instead you're rejoicing in God and how he's seeing you through this. It changes their view of who God is and makes them more open to the gospel.
Okay.
So how you live is important, but what you say about it is even more so.
Okay, so you would say, pretty much you would just say, to overcome those big hindrances that we have here in America, in evangelizing and sharing the gospel with people and just witnessing in general, is to, one, live it and speak what you live. Let people know why you are living the way you are living, so that they'll see your faith, when the stock market crashes or whenever things go wrong. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, if you're not living it, what you're saying has no value.
Okay. Yeah.
If you are living it and you don't say anything, then your living has no value.
Yeah. What are some ways, just like practical ways, you think that people could get involved in sharing just here in the States, like some practical ways besides just building a relationship with their neighbor?